Hi everyone, welcome back to the Social Media Derby. For those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share if you can, drop your comments down below. For those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the other podcasting platforms, please follow, give us a 5-star review if you can. Every little helps and is all appreciated. Let's have a quick chat on the latest transfer news and then obviously the big news coming out of both clubs in this last week. Erik Ten Hag stays. But before we get into it, on that point, let's talk about you guys, Arsenal. It's been a bit quiet, to be honest, hasn't it? Like, obviously, after the last episode dropped, Benjamin Sesko, who was kind of the main player you were linked with, signed a contract extension. So it doesn't look like he's going to go anywhere this summer. And then there've been a couple of really interesting.
Looked good in.
Yeah, he looked good
in
for
the Slovenia game as well.
Yeah, he did. He looked very lively. And yeah, they were kind of unlucky not to get a bit more out of that game. But yeah, he looked really good, I have to be honest. And if you compared him to Højlund on the other side, he definitely won that battle. But yeah, we'll not get into that. But yeah, he signed the contract extension. So you've been linked with a couple of interesting players in the last week. You've been linked with Guirassy, which I think makes sense. We've talked about him, in previous pods. We've been linked with him as well. So that's the striker option. But you've also been linked with a loan move for Xavi Simons from PSG, sorry, used to be at PSV. What do you make of those links? Because obviously the striker one, I think you probably don't want to chat too much about, but the Xavi Simons one is interesting, isn't it?
I mean, it's interesting, but it doesn't make any sense. I think Xavi Simons is a really good player. He's obviously played really well for the Netherlands actually yesterday as well, and was really one of their shining stars, alongside a couple of other players. But it just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't see why we would go for a player like that who is more suited to play in kind of like an attacking midfielder or winger type of role. I don't really see him being a player that's going to lead the line as your number 9. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me to go after him, especially with the loan move as well. Like, I mean, we're big bad Arsenal. We're supposed to be going for the title. Going and loaning a player from PSG doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me unless it's in the middle of the season and we've just lost Martin Odegaard, or if we lost somebody and we're trying to quickly replace them. Right? Doesn't make a lot of sense. So I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not putting too much stock in that whole. In that whole rumor. Maybe we've had a little talk with him here and there previously, but I don't see why we would go after him, given our current situation. And then the whole Guirassy thing, I think he's just going to be. He's got to be just one of the people on the shortlist. I know obviously the Sesko news of a contract extension is maybe disappointing, but I don't necessarily think that fully rules him out. I think it just means that obviously Leipzig are just trying to get a bit more money for him, right? And maybe we won't end up paying that money. Maybe, it's just part of their way to just secure that he stays there. But Guirassy he's going to be on the fringes of the kind of players that I'm looking for at the club. I think he's really good, and I do think that he could do a job for us, but he's not necessarily the first choice I'd like to have. I get it's still June, but if we're already getting down to like the bottom of the rung in terms of like our shortlist, it's a bit worrying for me. So I'm hoping it's just, part of the news that just comes out. It's somebody that we've spoken to, that somebody's figured out that we've been speaking to him, and it's just coming out now. But I do hope he's going to be one of multiple choices that we're looking into, because I'm going to be honest with you, Xavi Simons and Guirassy are not who I was hoping to talk about today.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a slow transfer market for you guys, to be honest. I mean, and I think the Sesko one was real, and I think the contract extension has kind of taken the wind out of the sails of that a little bit. And I guess your journalists are kind of scraping around to find who else is on those lists, even if they're players who are like you said, bottom or Xavi Simons, great prospect, looks really, really good. I can see how he could fit in your team, maybe off the left, cutting in, or maybe in the left-sided 8 role. But yeah, it's not the logical next step of a signing. And as you said, a loan move seems a little bit backwards for a team that's trying to, buy the best young players, develop a team for the long term. It kind of is a very short term move. But he has been
Mm.
linked with I think Bayern are looking at him on loan. So big teams are looking at him on loan. It's not like a complete wild shout. But I just think you guys aren't. You might have thrown your hat in the ring, like you said, because of previous contacts or whatever. But it would be a weird move. It'd be a good one. He's a good player, but it doesn't seem to fit the strategy you guys are going after. And I have to say, probably the same for Garassi. I don't really think you guys need like kind of experienced 27, 28, 29-year-old striker. I think you need kind of what you've signed in other positions, like a 22, 23, 24-year-old up and coming striker who's, he's about to make that upward ascension. Whereas Garassi, I think, I don't know, just it seems like the fit was better with you guys getting Sesko and us getting Garassi, that kind of thing, because we've got a young striker already. We need a more experienced one. You've got a Jesus or, kind of a player who's a little bit older in the striker role. You need a younger one. It just seems like the fit's weird.
And if you're a big team today, you're going to go for either an exciting young player that you think is going to, as you say, level up right at your club, or you're going to go for a sure thing, world class in their prime striker, right? And or in both, it could be that they're both of those things, like Haaland, for example, where they're an exciting young player that's going to level up, but they're also a world class striker. And Garassi, in my mind, doesn't really fit either of those. Like Garassi to me is like maybe what you'd get if you're Man United or if you're Chelsea, where you've got a young, exciting striker who probably just needs an arm around his shoulder, tell him to calm down a bit. So I think Garassi fits that mold, but I don't see where that fits into our team unless we're trying to bring him in to teach Nketiah how to be a striker. I don't know where that comes from. So it's a weird one, and I don't want anyone to think I'm talking down on Garassi as if he's a terrible player, because he's really good, and I've watched his highlights in the Bundesliga this season. And he's been amazing. But it's just not necessarily the move you want from a club who's supposed to be in the ascendancy, supposed to be trying to get into that number one role in arguably the most competitive league in the world. So, I mean, again, both of them they have value in their own ways, but it just doesn't make sense based off of the situation we're in today. I will say, though, Kai Havertz did not make sense last season to me either, and to a lot of other Arsenal fans. And it seems to have worked out all right. Jury's still out, still needs a couple of seasons of actually being good for me to fully believe in him. But for the most part, he's kind of proven a couple of people wrong. So maybe we're going to do that again, but that's not the general strategy I want my club going for, right? Weird left field signings that turn out to be all right in the end. I can take a couple of those, but I'm not doing that every season as our biggest signing. Come on now.
Yeah, that can't be a consistent strategy. Like
No.
all the top managers had a couple wild shouts where the fan base and the media were like, "What the heck is he doing here?" But you can't make it a consistent pattern, right? Fergie had them, Wenger had them, Mourinho had them. All the Peps had a few, Klopp's definitely had a few, but you can't make it a consistent thing. So yeah, Havertz is a good point though. Maybe maybe Havertz will be the number 9 going forward, and then the Garassi.
Also, I saw some reports come out about that. I saw a couple of reports come out saying we're not in the market for a striker. We're going to stick with Kai Havertz. I'm not going to tell you what I said when I saw some of those stories, but I don't know if that goes down well in the Arsenal camp right now. I think if it ends up being the way that we go for it, I know already the stat that they're going to pick out, which is in the last 17 games or whatever, he scored 14 goals or something for his club and country. I know that people are going to start parroting that if this is how we end up being. But let's all be honest with ourselves. At the beginning of this transfer window, that is not what we were hoping to happen. So if that is how we go for it, then I don't know. I'm going to have to take that leap of faith with Arteta, but it's not where I want to be.
Well, yeah, you're just kind of taking a continued step on that leap of faith, aren't you?
Yes.
You've already had to take the leap of faith on him in the first place. How many Arsenal fans didn't want Kai Havertz in the first place? So you're kind of just asking people to dig deeper in that bag, in that well of faith, and just hope that he's the guy to get you across the line. But no, I hear you. It's been a slow transfer week, guys. I'll be honest. We've made an actual bid though. I will say.
Yeah, Brentford. United. How are you feeling about that one, mate?
Yeah, I get that Ineos want to come in and try and address some of the issues we've had with overpaying, but £35 million bid for Branthwaite just
That's a
seems like
strict reject. Yeah.
yeah, that's one of those that when you play FM, you just kind of set it to reject all offers at a certain price because that's bordering taking the PISS of Everton. I know they've got financial problems, but yeah, that's beyond cheeky. So yeah, I mean, it was good to see that we finally activated in the market and we're actually trying to do something, but it kind of stinks a little bit of naivety to go in and offer 35 million. I've read some
Mm.
stories saying that we're going back in straight away with a 60 million second offer,
that
and I
you
mean
got that's a weird negotiating
that
tactic right there.
yeah, the spike on first bid to second bid just again that strikes of naivety the other way. You've gone 35 and you've almost doubled it with your second bid. That's not negotiation, guys. Like it's worrying the stories that I'm hearing. So yeah, I think eventually we will get the deal done, but I fear that we will get more close to what Everton are asking for, and less close to what we would ideally like to be paying, which probably is around that £60 million mark. I've also seen some reports saying this could all be a rope a dope, and we're actually going to like pivot and go and get Matthias de Ligt from Bayern Munich for 40 odd million instead. But I would personally prefer Branthwaite. Um, but the price I think is going to dictate what we do in this case because apparently I've seen Romano and the other ITKs all say we've got like 4 or 5 guys on the list, and Ten Hag's happy with all of them, so it's just a case of financially what makes the most sense and kind of where they fall down on the priority list, like you were talking about with your guys and the strikers. Clearly, Branthwaite is top. Then probably like the other guys we've mentioned previously, Tadibo, De Ligt is obviously on there as well. Lenny Yoro, there's a few guys on there, but obviously Branthwaite's the one that's top of the list. And yeah, I would be happy with that signing. I was saying to you guys on the group chat, I would be happy with Branthwaite. A cheeky little, give him some shout out, some praise for yesterday's performance. I would take Gahey as well. It's not a prisoner of the moment thing. I think sitting next to Lissandro at left centre back, I think Gahey would do a decent job. I mean, he played left centre back yesterday and he was pretty good, but I think he'd be good on the right hand side. But it doesn't look like we're in for him, and it looks like Branthwaite is the guy they want to get. But yeah, just the negotiation stuff and the way Ineos have moved in the last couple of weeks have kind of shaken the fan base's enthusiasm that we had originally when they came in and signing all these best in class guys. The way things have gone over the last couple of weeks have made us go, "Oh, are you the Glazers in disguise?" type vibe. You know what I mean? They've been moving been a bit weird.
And I think we're going to get into this in a minute. So we can talk about it in more depth, but there's definitely a feeling that I'm getting from this whole Ineos-led Man United that Sir Jim is making all the shots. He's calling all the shots. You know what I mean? Like you've gone and got this Omar Don, you've gone and got Jason Wilcox, you've got these people. Ideally, they know how to run a football club quite well based off of their previous experience, whereas I would say Ineos maybe don't based off of their previous experience, right? Um, and you'd think that they would behave in a slightly different manner, right? Like this whole 35 million immediately to 60 million, or the 35 million as a rope a dope to go and get De Ligt is kind of weird, based off of what I've seen from previous, let's say, clubs and their management in terms of behavior in the transfer market. So I don't know if you have this feeling as well, and we'll talk about it with the whole Ten Hag staying, but there's definitely a feeling I'm getting that, Sir Jim is really just saying, all right, Jason, go and get him and say 35 million is how much you're going to pay for it. And that would make more sense in the fact that it seems to be a bit more scattered, a bit weird in terms of how they're behaving. What do you think of that? Do you think that it's, these decisions to go and get bid for Branthwaite for 35 million are coming from the Jason Wilcoxes of the world and the Omar Baradas, or do you think this is a Sir Jim special?
I don't think it's a Sir Jim special, but I do think we haven't got the structure right yet. Like we haven't got everyone in place that we want to be doing certain things. So we've got Wilcox in, Barada's starting on the 1st of July, but I think he's kind of undercover working already by the judge, judging how some of these things are going. I think he's definitely, kind of lining things up for when he officially starts on July the 1st, but technically he's not in role. And then you have the whole Dan Ashworth debacle where we're still trying to work out his severance with Newcastle. So ideally, I think you would have Barada in telling Ashworth what we need to do financially. Ashworth goes in, speaks to the management, speaks to Wilcox, speaks to the scouts. They're their little transfer committee, and they decide on what position we need to target, and then draft up a list of what players fit the style of play they want Ten Hag to play. And I don't think we have that at the moment. So it might be the case of what you've said. Like, so Jim's involved. I know Jean-Claude Blanc is the acting CEO until Barada comes in. I think Wilcox is stepping up and taking on a bit more responsibility while Ashworth is not in. So it's a bit all over the shop, which is why I think this internal review with Ten Hag took longer and was a bit of a show, and why this bidding stuff with Branthwaite is going a little bit left, if you know what I mean, in terms of, like, you don't normally see a club going 35 million and then suddenly the next one is 60. That's really, really alternative negotiation, right? We always see it go kind of in increments, unless you see a scenario like with Caicedo last season where Liverpool just slap him like £100 million bid out of the blue, and then you can see things scale up quite quickly. As far as I know, I haven't heard about any other offers going for Branthwaite, so it's interesting and kind of strange to see us do that kind of tactic. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird time for United when it comes to all of these really big decisions.
Well, I mean, speaking of that, Mr. Erik Ten Hag in Mallorca or Ibiza or wherever he was had a cheeky little visit, didn't he? And he's apparently staying at Man United. So
Yeah, Ten Hag
what's your
stays.
viewpoint on that,
Get
mate?
in. Yeah, no, I'm happy about it. I said before on previous eps, I understand why a lot of the fan base are skeptical. I understand why Ineos themselves were skeptical. I understand that it was not good viewing in the league in particular last season, but also the Champions League as well. So he had, I think, very justified question marks over his position, but at the same time, I think he's had valid reasons why things have been difficult. I think he deserves a bit more time, and I feel like it would have been really harsh to dump him after 2 seasons. If you look at Mourinho, he got, was it 3 seasons or at least 2.5? And he was actually causing madness behind the scenes at the club with all of our players. And then, yeah, Van Gaal, I think, was probably quite harshly done by after 2 seasons. So I think I'm one of the, I don't know if it's the minority or majority anymore, judging by how like flip floppy a lot of our fan base is. But I think it's the right decision, and I think keeping him there, let him do another a season at the club is a lot more it makes a lot more sense when it comes to all the instability I've just talked about with the backroom staff and all this kind of stuff going on. I think you just keep the coach in for this next season. I don't, you can ask me about the contract extension stuff, and I might have a different answer to that argument.
I've
But
got
keeping
because I've
him,
got
I
two
think,
questions
makes
then.
sense.
Well, I've got two questions then, right? Like, first of all, what do you make of the way that they've done it, right? Because there's a lot coming out about how he got a nice little visit on his doorstep saying, hey, you're going to stay at Man United, and apparently you are the best man for the job. We checked the market. You know that we checked the market, and you're still the best man for the job. What do you make of the way that they delivered the news and his response to it?
Well, this goes back to what Ineos, like, it's tied into the whole transfer negotiation thing. I think that was a weird move. I don't think it's a weird move to do your little internal review. I don't think it's a weird move to maybe consider other options. I do think it's been weird how they've gone about it. So all these things going out in the media that they're meeting all these guys. So Jim's meeting Tuchel in Monaco. He's already met McKenna. He's done all these different things. And then, after all this uncertainty, you suddenly rock up at Ten Hag's Airbnb in Ibiza and say, "Yo, actually, we want to stick with you. We don't want to. I know you've been seeing the rumors, but we we still love you, man. We want you to stay as a manager. I don't agree with that, and I think that could have been handled better. I think Ten Hag had a quote saying Ineos are new to football, so they're still trying to get their feet under the table. I wish that was true.
My man
They've
is
been
unhinged, by the way.
He's
We're
lost it. I
seeing
love
Ten
it.
Hag after dark, like Ten Hag
Ten Hag
unleashed.
uncut. Yeah, Ten Hag
Yeah.
uncut is. I love it actually. I'm here for it. I like it when his jaw starts swinging and he starts to lose his cool and gets a little bit more Dutch, and lets loose and is a bit more direct about things. But yeah, I mean, what he said back to the comment thing about Ineos being new to football, they're not that new to football. They've been at Nice for 4 or 5 years or whatever the period of time they've been at. They've had Lausanne for a bit in Switzerland. They're not complete novices, but I do think they've found out the
They're
hard
behaving
way.
like they are.
Yeah, I do think they found out the hard way that it's not going to be that easy to go and turn this around and do the backroom staff rebuild that they wanted to do. Even though I agree that it's the right thing to do, and I don't disagree with the end decisions they've made so far in almost every scenario. I do think the way they've gone about it has made it look like they've either been completely unprepared, taken completely off guard, or were maybe a bit complacent and thought, oh, I can just go and take Wilcox from Southampton, no problem. I can take Dan Ashworth from Newcastle, no problem. I can go and take
I
Brad,
do
I can do all
think,
these things. And it's not like
yeah, I do think they don't realise the level that they're operating with Man United, right? Like you might be able to go and do a couple of things quietly when you're with Nice or Lausanne, right? You can go and talk to a couple of managers here and there, and no one's going to figure it out. With Man United, you've got a microscope on you at all times, right? So they're going to magnify every mistake, every wrong move you make is going to be really built up. Everyone's going to see it. Everything's going to happen in the light of day. And this is probably where they're figuring out the hard way. This ain't Nice no more. Like, we need to be smarter about how we move. Every mistake we make is going to be under the magnifying glass. We got to figure this out. And so, I mean, even this whole Ten Hag saga, right? The fact that he's come out and said they came to my doorstep, they said I'm the best manager. Even that's probably stuff they maybe didn't want to hear in the media. They didn't want to be so public. So I think based off of how they treated Ten Hag, he's probably going to be a little bit less media trained than he was previously. And they're going to have all sides of the coin, all sides of the media, all sides of everybody really looking at what they're doing very carefully. So I think that the quicker they can get this structure in place and the quicker they can start behaving like, a flawless football club, the better it will be for them, because Man United ain't easy. I think everybody knows that. As much as it pains other clubs and other fans, we ain't Man United. We ain't got to deal with all the stuff that you've got to deal with on a daily basis from all the media. So I definitely agree. I think it's a weird way to behave. I do agree with the overall decision that came out of it. I think Ten Hag is the best option. I don't know if he's the best manager necessarily, but he's the best option you've got based off of what's available in the market today. And it's going to be interesting to see Ten Hag unleashed next season.
I mean, it reminds me of the Ronaldinho meme where he's licking his lips and rubbing his hands like that. That's
Exactly.
how I'm approaching this season with Ten Hag, because I feel like we got to see a little flavor of it last season, but it was too little to get us to go, you know what, I'm gonna back this. Like, he would whinge about little particular things and you go, okay, come on, bro. But then you're also saying things that make no sense at all. If he just completely loses it and just comes out and just says what he's thinking and what we're thinking all the time, then I'm here for it.
It's going to be the Ralph Rangnick version of Ten Hag.
Yeah, but slightly aggy, because Ralph was too nice. I get a little bit more kind of like niggle from Ten Hag, and so I think he's this Ten Hag uncut is going to be one I can get down with. I can get jiggy with this version of him, and let's see how it goes.
I mean, based off of the contract extension, you might have Ten Hag uncut for a lot longer. What do you make of that? Giving him a couple extra years, mate.
This is the thing. So I've heard a couple of people talk about it. The Ten Hag outers are like losing their mind because they're going, "Oh my god, all right, sticking with him in the first place, I can't take, but giving him another extra 2 years or whatever it is just, why are you doing this to us?" And then I've also seen some people go, "Look, guys, if there is going to be a new contract, I'm sure there'll be clauses in there that if he flops in the first 6 months, they can let go of him for a lot cheaper than his current contract, and there'll be or be heavily clause based where they can get out of things and essentially a contract means nothing. I just think the optics are weird. So that I can understand both sides, and the latter argument's probably the most logical, right? I think the former one's based on emotion. Why are you giving them a contract when we finished eighth, -1 goal difference, all that kind of stuff? But the second one is probably closer to reality in that it keeps him locked in for a while, so they've not got to worry about him just deciding, you know what, deuces, I've had enough of you guys at the end of next season. Let's say he does really well and they want to keep him, and then he can leave for free. But also, if he does really badly and they need to address it earlier than the end of the season, they probably don't want to pay 10 million or whatever his penalty clause is in his current contract. So there's going to be ways that it's going to be beneficial to both parties. But I get it. It looks smelly. It looks like one FA Cup final has made them go, at the end of the day, stick with Ten Hag, and now we're suddenly, both feet on board, which seems a little bit reactionary to say the least. So I'm kind of struggling with how it looks and what it actually means. But I personally, I would have just kept him on his current contract, let him see out the season, and then if he really is bought in, you're probably going to have to pay a heftier wage, but at least he's, it looks like he's earned it. Whereas right now, it feels like we're kind of we're rewarding someone for just winning the FA Cup final, but having an all-time stinky rest of the season.
I think we got to look at it from a business perspective, right? You never want to let the other side have too much power, right? And in the case of contract signing, he's just come off of a smelly season in terms of eighth in the Premier League, -1 goal difference. Of course, you got the trophy, but overall, on balance, he can't come out and ask for too much, right? So when it comes to a contract negotiation, he's going to say, all right, give me a couple extra years, give me a little bit of a bump on my pay, put in a couple of extra clauses here and there that make you happy, but, I'll take what I can get. You have to think about it as if you get to the end of next season and he's done a better job, he's got you into let's say the top four again, and I don't know, maybe got you a trophy or whatever else, right? If he has a good season for you, you are in the worst possible negotiating position, because he's going to come and say, you want to keep me? I don't have to stay anymore. There's no financial penalty for me leaving. You want to keep me? You've got to give me the big bucks. You've got to give me, a very nice contract. And I think we all need to take that into account when it comes to players, when it comes to managers. Sometimes it doesn't make any sense to give them a new contract, sure. But if they're in the situation that Ten Hag is in, whether it's a player or a manager, and there's some value to them, it's better off negotiating when they have a little bit less power than to let it get to the point where, oh crap, he's just gone and won us something, all of the fans love him, and now we've got to go and pay him 500 grand a week or whatever it might be to keep him around. So I can see it from both sides. I think the optics do look terrible, and I think had they just been a bit more proactive about all of this, and maybe it was in May, June, early June when they signed this, and it wasn't the whole FA Cup debacle, I think it would have overall looked a bit better to the fans and looked a bit better in general. But overall, it's probably the smart business decision to make. You don't need a manager in their last year of contract at your team when you're trying to rebuild things, right? You need a bit more stability than that. So I get it. It kind of all of the decisions they've made, probably makes the most sense to me.
Yeah, no, you're right, man. And I think every season we're seeing managers and the movement of managers and the way we deal with managers and coaches in football kind of shifting over to a very similar model that we currently, use for players, which is, you're seeing managers now having almost transfer fees. I know we don't call them transfer fees, but they're being bought out of contracts. Clubs getting large chunks of compensation in the millions. And then now we're also, back in the days, I think Sir Alex Ferguson was on like a rolling contract every year. There was no worry about, he's going to leave or whatever. I know it's a special case, but a lot of managers were often on shorter deals because there was a bit of faith based and managers weren't being treated like players.
Yeah, loyalty, trust, less
but
of a
you see
business.
now, it's very true. Ten Hag's in his last year of his deal. Well, how do we treat players in the last year of the deal? Often they get a big new contract. Look what, and if not, they get a renewal, and then if not, if they do well in their last year, the club's kind of over the barrel, like Rashford had United and gets 300k because he has an amazing season, and then he has the power and the leverage. So I hear it. That's probably a logical way to look at it. So yeah, all those United fans out there losing their cool about Ten Hag staying and then signing the contract, just listen back to that little segment or watch a bunch of other content creators who are talking about it from that perspective. I think that's probably where Ineos and United are coming from.